Hello. I believe we are live. So, welcome in everybody. We are Up at Night, a game studio based in New York and elsewhere. But yeah, we will introduce ourselves in a second, and then we're going to be talking about our favorite games of 2024. We'll give people a couple of minutes to come in if that's what they're planning on doing. But been a good year. 4 games. What do you think? 2024.
Yeah, I mean, I played a lot more modern games this year than I have, I feel like, in the last 5 or so years. So, definitely agree. There was some good stuff. There's some good big AAA titles. There were some really good indie titles this year. Um, lot of variety, a lot of successes.
And that is a lot coming from you because you're a father and have no time.
It's true. It's true. After hours grinds are definitely upon me. Side questing is tough. It's tough in this time.
Really took it out of you, those AAA games. Nathan, what do you think about 2024 for games?
It was a good year. Maybe not the best. Maybe not the best. But there were a couple of things that I really, really loved. And so, yeah, what more do you need?
Mm-hmm.
That said,
Eloquent
I'm still
in its
catching up.
private.
Like I'm playing Never right now, which I never got around to. I'm playing some other 2024 games, so I think there's still a good backlog of stuff I haven't even got through yet.
Yeah, that's the thing is I had a list at around November, December of like, all right, here's what I want to get through. And it just kept getting longer and I only got through like 10 games. So,
What's the most important one you haven't played yet?
oh, that's such a good question. I have to pull up my list. But Neva was definitely on there.
Oh yeah, I want to
Um,
play Neva.
I
Really
think,
like Never.
yeah, I
It's really
think a
great.
thousand times resist is high on my list.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Uh, oh, sorry, we're closed is probably the next biggest one that I want to play, which is like a queer indie PS1 throwback adventure horror game kind of thing.
Oh yeah, we played Fear the Spotlight, Nolan and I the other day, which was fun. Part one.
Yes. Very good. First Blumhouse Games
Yeah.
game.
Hmm. I think my top of my list of didn't play, but it's also like top of my list, but also like I don't know if I'm gonna take the dive. And Nolan, I think you're the same way as Metaphor. I'm a huge Atlas fan. I did play P3 Reload this year, which was quite good. Not on my list, as we'll get into, but still quite good. Still beat it all the way through, or at least played a lot of it. And my wife played the rest of it because she loves grinding out Persona games. Um, but Metaphor, it's like I've heard so many amazing things about it. There are parts of the art style that I've seen from like clips and let's plays and trailers and that kind of stuff that I'm like that really works. And then there are other parts that it's like that type of universe, that sort of like I don't know, high fantasy universe doesn't always do it for me. I think it's like kind of the same aesthetic in a way of like as like Fire Emblem, and I never could really get deeply in those games. But I probably will play it at some point. It's just when do I want to completely lose my evenings for 2 months? Is more the question.
The Eternal Struggle. Those games are long, and Metaphor, I heard, is a little bit more manageable than Persona 5, but not much. So, yeah, maybe we should just get right into it then. So, this is our discussion of our favorite games of 2024. So, first off, who are we? We are a game studio called Up at Night. We've been making games together for almost 10 years now. We've got 4 games out. You can check them out at upatnightgames.com, including Circle Stop, Janky Bounce, Imposter Drawster, and Silly Seance. And now we are starting up some new grand experiments coming up this next year. So if you want to hear more about that, you can go to our brand new Patreon at patreon.com/upatnightgames and follow for free, just to get on a list to find out what we're going to be doing. We'll be announcing some more stuff pretty soon. And then to get into it a little bit more, introductions. So my name is Nolan. I do code at Up at Night primarily. Chris, why don't you go next?
Yeah, I am Chris Dugan, and I handle production, both from a getting stuff done perspective as well as an asset production perspective. Nathan, that's you.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Nathan. I do design stuff up at night, both game design, UI, UX design.
Yeah, and so we are a small studio, so we all do a bunch of different things, and then sometimes we do contract out for other roles, sounds, art, marketing. We've done in the past, so we don't have a lot of people, but I think we do punch above our weight pretty well. But now we're gonna give you a little bit better idea of our taste in games, because obviously we have the best taste. But here is our favorite games of 2024. We each have a couple. These are not ranked. They're just sort of games that we think are, were great experiences from the last year. So I will start off, and my first game,
Drumroll.
drum roll. Oh
The
yes,
drummer.
if you'd like. So my first game is, let's turn off that volume, but is Lorelei and the Laser Eyes from Simogo. So I am a longtime Simogo fan. I think, Nathan, actually, you were the one who introduced me to Yearwalk way back in the day. But yeah, have loved their puzzle games ever since. And they all sort of have been this minimalist style, on primarily on mobile, and then with their last game, Sayonara Wild Hearts, it took a big step up graphically, more of an action game, a lot of fun. But with this one, they went back to their puzzle roots, but kept some of that graphical fidelity from Sayonara Wild Hearts. And it was great. It was a notebook game. You have to write down these clues you're finding as you walk around a mansion. It's got this great sort of monochrome for the most part art style, but like glowy pink bits. And obviously at Up at Night, we love our black and white and pink. So how could I not love this game? But it was, I think, most impressive in the way, not that it designed its puzzles, but that it designed the series of puzzles to keep layering meaning on top of the puzzles that you had already solved. So as you go through it, you start to realize later what the earlier puzzles actually meant. And I think that it was just like a triumph of design. I don't know. I think, did anyone else have a chance to play this? I think we mostly didn't play each other's games, but
Yeah, which is really fun. This one I have played. Like you said, I am a big Simogo fan. I probably played 2 or 3 hours before I got busy with other things. But it's definitely like top of my list to get back to. Did you find it scary at all?
it was not scary, no.
Okay.
It
Okay.
does
'Cause
have
it
a
does have a kind of Resident Evil feel to it, right? With like the fixed
Yeah, the camera angles. Yeah.
Absolutely. But I think that that is more for the simplicity of the control scheme. This is
Mhm.
kind of a point and click adventure game style, so uh, and I think you only really ever have one button, even in menus, that you use. So
Oh, right.
it's yeah, so it's a fixed camera angle so that it's easier to navigate and not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily so that it is limiting your ability to move around.
Your vision and see what's around you. Okay.
Yeah. It definitely can get intense, but I wouldn't say
Yeah.
scary. I'm not a scary games boy, so can't handle that.
This game is beautiful. I've not played this, and seeing this trailer is the first time I've seen the the like graphics or anything like that. I love the aesthetic. It's really, really cool.
It's gorgeous. It's relatively low fidelity, actually, just in terms of the complexity of the models and everything. But they do so much with just color and shape. And,
Lighting as well is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
Just like really emphasizing certain points and having that sort of like darkness and negative space and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, really using sort of cinematography and staging and framing to make it seem like a lot more is going on than actually is when they, usually in cutscenes they just have pretty static models or maybe, simple animations. So it just makes everything feel really stylized and interesting and keeps it focused on this bizarre mansion where something more is going on than you can, than initially meets the eye.
There always is.
There always is. So yeah, that is. Go ahead.
I need to get back to this. Just talking about it. Been top of my list, and I need to go play it right after this, I think.
Well, we've got a lot more games to talk through, so
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, I'll take the next one, and maybe we could talk about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Let's do it.
All right, so explain it to me like I've never played a Final Fantasy game.
I've never had to do something like this. You're on an adventure with a bunch of cool people, and there's lots of things to do, as well as a looming apocalypse. That's probably my explain it like I'm 5 kind of for any Final Fantasy. But this one specifically, and it's by Square Enix. The video we're watching now is by YouTuber Go Away I'm Gaming. One of my favorite clips from it. And look, I gotta start off here. I absolutely despise reboots and reboot culture, both in games and in film and in TV. This is something that I just don't like that there isn't original media anymore. But I am much more of a sucker for Final Fantasy than I am a hater. And in this particular case, this is a game that I feel like people have been waiting for, this and remake before it for a long time. They've been waiting to kind of see their sort of what this was in their imagination when they were playing it when they were younger, visualized into modern graphics. So everything about this is what I dreamed I wanted Final Fantasy to be. They really nailed the character designs. They nailed so many of the environments. The opening sequence of ascending Mount Nebel, I was speechless. I was like, this is what 7-year-old me thought this should be. And so many of these areas, the one that we're seeing now as the gang ascends up to the Golden Saucer, which is the Las Vegas casino land of Final Fantasy VII. They're places that I'd want to go on real life. They're places I would want to go on vacation with Tifa and Cloud and the rest of the party. The other thing that really stood out to me about this game, the voice acting was incredible. I often don't play Japanese games in English. I played this one in English, and I really am glad I did. Tifa and Aerith especially, their voice actresses absolutely nailed the performances. And they really breathed life into what was once just a bunch of polygons and written text in the original game. So by far the best moments in this game are those sort of character interactions. They really flesh out these relationships in these little intimate character moments that happen as you're adventuring, as you're settling into inns at the end of a sequence, that kind of thing. And it's a long game. It is. I played over 100 hours. There's a lot of side questing, and I would argue there is too much side questing, and a lot of it is not very good. A lot of it is just difficult for the sake of being difficult. This game was built in Unreal Engine, so I think it was one of those things where they just kind of tossed projects at development teams, and they're like, "Hey, go make a shooting game, go make a soccer game, go make a racing game." There's a lot of that. And I didn't find a lot of it particularly satisfying, other than Queen's Blood, which is a card game. Kind of feels like I can't think of what the Witcher card game is. Geralt. That's the guy. But it feels like it's like a 3-lane type of card game where you're trying to win 2 of the 3 lanes. And that was actually pretty. What's that?
Gwent.
It is
Gwent.
Gwent.
That's it.
Gwent.
Gwent.
Yeah.
Geralt plays Gwent. But the reason why I actually really like why there's so much side questing in this game, even though I didn't like a lot of the actual content of it, is because there is a kind of like tragic inevitability of the ending. This is a game that I think over 100 hours represents about a 15 to 20 hour sequence in the original, which is really fillery and like not a lot happens. It's just kind of like world discovery. And then there's this like major plot point that happens at the end of it, which, you know, if you are aware of the original, you want to put off as long as possible. And I think that that's one of the things that I found special about this, even though I didn't always enjoy the sort of odds and ends of the game design, is just sort of like wanting to postpone the inevitability of what, you know, you assume might be coming. I suppose you don't know if it's a reboot, if they do something differently, but that, you know, you sort of are privy to if you're aware of the fiction of Final Fantasy VII. So yeah, this was a very fun game for me. I enjoyed playing it. It's beautiful. I'm really excited for the 3rd installment to see how they wrap it all up.
I also played this game, and
Yeah.
yeah, I love Final Fantasy. I loved Final Fantasy VII Remake. I didn't really like Rebirth that much, and that was mainly because of all of the side questing and all of the mini games and everything that you were talking about. I just felt like most of the game was kind of throwaway, and it, you know, the few moments where you get to actually have all the characters together and do the story beats were great. But there was so much other game just in between that. I also didn't love some of the choices they made to kind of pull some of the to like rearrange the timeline from Final Fantasy VII. They pulled some of the events from later forward and then also pushed off some of the events backwards. And I thought that it uh, made it so that they didn't really have anything that happened in this game, right? Like the only thing that happens is at the end, and everyone is waiting to see what that is. And you know, I have different opinions on how well they handled that, but
Mhm.
it just took up a lot of my time with stuff that was
It
not
sure did.
particularly interesting or fun.
Yeah, I
But
think
yeah,
some of the
This is the year of not doing side content, right?
Oh yeah, 2025 is no more side questing. We're
Yeah,
just
side-
mainlining games. No, I totally get it, and there are parts in this game, and you and I talked about it a lot throughout, where I was like, they really put the one that I think comes to mind the most is the like chocobo floating mini game in Cosmo Canyon, which is like one of the worst designed control schemes I think I've played in a thing in a long time. But like for me, and I don't know, I always do this with games. I sort of like create my own fiction in my head, but I'm like, as long as I'm here adventuring, it's, you know, about the journey, and the journey is kind of not what's important. The importance is the, you know, the relationships you're building on the way, and even if you're not structurally changing those relationships, doing silly mini games, which in some cases you are, there are sort of like specific party interactions that grow and develop if you accomplish XYZ mini game. Then you're still having fun on the journey, as it were. So that's why I forgive a lot of that stuff while not ignoring that it was bad. And as you can see right now, like there's like silly polygon fighter. There's every genre of game in this game. There is too much game design in this game. They did not know how to stop.
it's true. And yeah, I definitely agree. The best parts were how they like matched up characters in different ways, so you got relationships built out that weren't necessarily there in the original Final Fantasy VII.
Mhm.
But yeah, that is Rebirth. Anything else before we move on to Nathan's first game?
No, I'll say it again. I want to play the 3rd part. I'm ready for it.
I'm ready
There's
to.
a third one?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Are
going to
you
be a third
kidding me?
one.
Okay, and people were mad about Wicked, but this is fine.
I'm mad about Wicked. Also, I'm mad about this. I think if I'm playing through these 3 games again, I might do remake and then just skip to the third one. But
I think that's fair. Depending on how good the 3rd one is, which it should be called Reunion, and if it's not, it's a mistake.
Nolan, can we go to my third game?
Sure. That is this one, I believe. Go ahead and say it.
If it's not, it's Dragon Age.
I got it right.
Oh yes. Well, I was just listening to so many things about kind of this aligned with Dragon Age, right? It's a huge RPG. It's maybe not the 200-hour game, but I put a solid 80 into it. I love BioWare. It's been so long since BioWare has put out a BioWare game, I guess. It's 10 years since the last Dragon Age game, Inquisition, which was also great. In the meanwhile, we had Anthem, less of a focus on character and story, which of course is what people really come to BioWare for. I guess in those 10 years, I've seen the trailer now. This is not my character. This is um, it's so weird to see a game that you've played, and see a different protagonist right there when you're so used to seeing the person that you created and built a relationship with over those 80 hours. I guess in those 10 years, I've kind of my action RPG diet has been very From Software heavy, right? It's been the Dark Souls, the Bloodborne, sometimes Elden Ring. And I love those games. The combat is amazing. The level design and character design is all incredible. Um, I really missed this type of game, right? I missed caring about the characters. The From games, for everything they do so well, they ask you to do so much work to even learn somebody's name, learn a character's name, let alone really get to know them. There's none of that. This, on the other hand, yeah, you pick up the odd note here and there, but it's not relying on environmental storytelling. It's relying on two characters talking, right? And I miss that so much. The combat is also fun. It's a lot kind of squishier and more forgiving than the Souls games, but they've changed it up too. It still have that classic kind of mouse and keyboard feel where you're essentially waiting for cooldowns to run out for you to fire off your next shot, but in that leads to some really long battles, which are also really exciting. Like some of these battles remind me of the best scenes in the Game of Thrones show or in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Just epic scale. That's really incredible.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
I have not played this, but I do have one very important question for you.
Mhm.
How gay is it?
I think it's pretty gay. I mean, I think Dragon Age has been well known, specifically out of the BioWare games, for maybe being a little bit ahead of the curve, a little more inclusive. Dave Gaynor was a writer on those, and a really great writer who valued a diverse cast, and I think just as importantly, made that diverse cast really interesting and feel like real people. Even if they're Kunari or elves or dwarves, they all felt human, in a way that, again, you don't get in so many games, right? It's not about the lore. The lore is secondary. It's about the people and the characters.
Is there a dating mechanic in it, or?
There is a dating mechanic, yeah. I was a female Kunari, which are the Kunaris are basically like tieflings, right? They're like kind of horned. That one in the middle there. So I was a lady Kunari, and yeah, I have some thoughts on this. Like, I would love for them to open it up to you. It is very, you lock yourself into a path and then you're kind of stuck with it. And there's like a big flashing thing that's like, are you sure? Do you want to be monogamous in this relationship now, right? It'd be kind of interesting to have all the characters that I had been flirting with for the whole first like 30 minutes of the game to come back and be like, what the fuck? You were just leading me on for those last 30 hours? That would be a lot of fun. They just everyone's so live and let live. It's great. It's a little bit utopic in that way, but yeah, there's definitely dating. It is a big part of the game.
Good.
Another suggestion: Hades style threesome.
80s style.
Yeah. Maybe you didn't get that far in Hades, but
I certainly did.
Yeah, sorry,
There's-
Hades. Yes.
yes.
Yeah. I think they could do a lot more with it. There is also still kind of a very linear build to it. It's almost like this is dating by numbers, right? Like you go out on your first date and then like you meet their friends and you learn a little bit of their backstory and their trauma, and then like at the end before the final bite, like final fight, everybody might die. That's when you have sex. That's when you always have sex. And in every Bioware game, it's fun to follow that formula, but there's definitely room to grow too.
I feel that way about Persona a little bit too. Although it's different. I won't tangent too much, but it's kind of on your own pace, but then always happens in those same like 10 story beats. But yeah, nice
Yeah, I'm
nice for parents.
happy to have BioWare back. I know they announced that they are not working on DLC for Dragon Age because their team is full steam ahead on Mass Effect. And I respect that. They put out a game that is solid, that is complete, and they're moving on to the next. And I'm excited to see what they do next.
That is definitely something that is increasingly rare nowadays. So
It's true.
all right, let's move on to my next game. It's gonna be uh, it's gonna be something completely different either way. So let's go the most different is different. So this is a game called Minishoot Adventures.
Ooh.
Yeah, so this is a amazing indie game. It's basically like what if Zelda were a shoot 'em up? So you're like this little ship that goes around, and you gotta like shoot stuff, right? It's like a twin stick shooter, but you also get upgrades and you get like new weapons, like you would in a Zelda game, that unlock new powers and you can go new places. And it's a tried and true formula, but this like particular mashup of genres, I think works really well. And in addition, just the art style is great, and it I think is the right length for what it can deliver. And it's just, a really great experience that I think ended up uh, at the right length and left me wanting more. And I'm really excited to see what this team does next.
Yeah.
I don't
Who
know,
is the
neither of you.
team? What's their deal?
Yeah, the team is Soul Game, I believe. Let me verify that, but
So not Souls like game.
it's
Soul
not a
game.
Souls like, yeah. Yeah,
How, how,
Soul Game
what's the difference?
Studio is what it is. That's what it's not Soul Games, it's Soul Game Studio.
Game Studio. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looks really nice. Yeah, I haven't played it, but just watching kind of the drifting around, it looks like it has really good kind of feel to it. Um,
100%. And, they're nice, weird, robot-y creatures that are like maybe organic or maybe not. And it's just got some like great world building, basically no text anywhere. Um, yeah. So
What
really,
was your like favorite power up or ability or whatever that you got throughout the course of playing?
yeah, so well, it is very funny because you're like this little hover ship, it looks like, but then you can't swim. So being able to swim was a great first step. But no,
oh, you
the
can.
I know the thing where it started to click together for me was you had a meter, right? Like a stamina bar that you used for dashing, and then at one
Mm.
point you unlocked a like focus fire, which also used your stamina, but it was kind of like a combination of higher attack, and also bombs and also a torch. So you could like blow up, rocks that had cracks on it. You could light torches with it, and it did increased damage, right? While you had stamina to do it, so it became this really nice tool for like exploring the world. You had to use it in combat and puzzles and exploration, and also balance it right with your dashing and other things you use stamina. So that's when it really kind of like clicked together for me, where I'm making interesting choices on a moment to moment basis. But yeah, highly recommend it.
Excellent.
Nice.
All right, Chris, what's your next game?
Should I say it the right way, or should I say it the way that Nathan writes it? It's Balatro.
Oh man, I was gonna say there's
Well,
not enough. We aren't fighting enough for this to be interesting yet. We need a little bit more friction.
All right, tell us about it.
Yeah, so I was a little bit late to the party on this game. I didn't really deeply play it until kind of more in the last couple months. The first time I did play it, the three of us were out at a bar, and you guys were like, "This game is amazing," and someone put it in my hands, and my son was also there, so I was only half paying attention, and I was like, "Oh, this is like a cute poker game that I bet is like fun and addictive or whatever." But I kind of like only played through the first blind, and I didn't even buy any power ups, and I didn't really get it in that moment. So I revisited it kind of like a lot of people after the like, oh my god, there are all these like triple A's nominated for Game of the Year, and then what is this other like poker roguelike that like one dude basically made. It's by Local Thunk, by the way. So I downloaded it. I was going on holiday trips, and I wanted to have something on my Switch to play. And despite the fact that I am a person with very limited time for gaming, this was the kind of game that I picked up. And then I started playing, and then I looked at the clock, and I was like, "Holy shit, that was 5 hours!" Like just it was, just go again, just go again. This game is so humbling in the way that it takes you from like feeling like there's no possible way you're gonna lose to like staring at the cards in your hand and the cards left in your deck and seeing that you have two hands left to play and just being like, fuck, there is no fucking way I am passing. I'm passing this.
Hand to hand, you're like, I am the best at this game ever, and then you just hit a wall out of nowhere. It's very humbling. I think that's exactly the right word.
Yeah, fascinating. Such interesting, thoughtful design and interactions. It kind of takes the spirit of like I'm going to design a game that I want you to break, and I want you to see how far you can take the combination of systems that I've sort of have put in place. The theming on so many of the jokers, from the mechanics and how they sync up with the art, and how they allow you to get these like egregiously big scores. I didn't even realize you could get the like to the power of scores until I was like watching some videos where it's like 10 to the 10 e to the something, or in like that sort of thing.
There are exponents.
Yeah, there are exponents. You can get exponents.
I've never even seen that, and okay.
Yeah. There is a lot of depth to this game. There's a lot of different kinds of decks, replayability. There's a lot of things you unlock as you play longer. Yeah, it's awesome. I'm not playing it as actively anymore, but it's definitely the kind of thing that if I were a person who had more time, I would like lose months to this game. It is that good, and came right at a good moment for me when NFL gambling wasn't going so well. So I got my gambling fix a different way, a cheaper way, as it were, from Balatro.
Yeah, I also love this game. I think that right it its most clever innovation was that chip multiplayer system, so that you have two different things going on that you can raise independently of each other. And that's what really allowed it to turn like this whatever fundamentally random system into a roguelike, right? Something that you can like build up over time. It's just a smart game with a lot of weirdness, and I think the smartest thing it does is let that weirdness be front and center, right? Like you can get some really, really, really broken decks, and it feels so good to do that.
Yeah, it's weird mechanically, in addition to some of the kind of the narrative quirks, right? The little Joker making fun of you at the end of a level after you hit a wall. I also love this game. I played a lot of it when it came out, and then about a month ago, I picked it up again and probably put in another 20 hours. I was having Tetris Vision dreams of this one. So
It definitely is that kind of Tetris Vision, like flow state kind of game. The comps that I had were like Super Hexagon or like something like that, where or Super Hexagon or Super Crate Box was the other one that I remember. The first time I like played it, I was like, okay, cool. And then the second session, I was like, okay, okay, okay. And then I look and like the entire night is gone. It's just like literally like birds are chirping and it's the morning. I was like, what the hell just happened?
Oh, yeah, that's the Vampire Survivors for me. But
oh yeah, absolutely.
just a lot of games that you feel like, oh, just one more run, I can do that. Did either of you play any of the DLC? Because I did not.
I pulled some of the characters that you can. Um, they have partners with various indie studios where you can replace the face cards, but I haven't found anything beyond that yet.
I think that might just be it, but okay.
It's fun. It's fun collabs.
It's cool to have some like Binding of Isaac face cards in there, you know.
Yeah.
Okay. Because the like Vampire Survivors DLC with indie studios actually like incorporates things from their games into the gameplay, so I
Right.
wasn't sure if that was.
I don't think it goes that far. Maybe I think he's still working on it, right?
Yeah.
Might
I mean,
as well.
Yeah. All right. Anything else to say on Balatro?
Bolatro
What's
is
actually the right way to say it?
So nobody really knows.
Okay.
Is the short
Balatro.
answer, but
Sure.
yeah.
All right, pass to
And
Nathan.
also Local Thunk doesn't care is the other part
Yeah.
of it.
That's great. Great.
So
Great.
yeah. All right, Nathan, what is your next game?
My next game is going to be Hellblade 2, Senua's Saga. Don't love the subtitle on that one. It's a little bit forgettable, but it's a great game.
If you only
There you
have
go.
2 games, is it a saga?
Well, so it is a saga in that it is very much kind of so this particular game is set in Iceland. I believe the first game was set in was it Ireland? No, no one. You played a little bit of it.
Yeah, I don't remember, but
It's kind of an epic Viking saga. That is the story behind it. That is the world that the Ninja Theory's given us here, and so I would say it truly is a saga in that way.
tell us about the game.
Yeah. So Ninja Theory is a studio that I love. I think maybe somebody else here is fond of them from time to time too. Even back to Heavenly Sword on the PS3, I believe. You know, they were always a studio that was trying to push the envelopes in terms of what's possible with motion capture and face capture and video game acting, right? They had a pretty big collaboration over the years with Andy Serkis of Lord of the Rings fame, played Gollum. They may still have a relationship with him. I don't know, but I know that they make some of the most kind of spectacular, realistic games in the industry, right? Um, so this is a game of about a character, Senua, going through this shit, right? It's very reminiscent of one of my favorite movies, The Descent. It is really about a character kind of just going facing a nightmare and living to survive through it, right? It's very narrative heavy. The acting and the character performance is one of the most important parts of it. It's where you spend a lot of your time attention paying attention to that detail, but also the details of the world. I think the reason this really stood out to me is it made looking at rocks fun. And granted, you know, the landscape of Iceland is, I do it a disservice just saying it's rocks, but this game manages to do that. It makes it feel like it's a real place that you would want to explore in the same way that you would if you were physically there, right? You might want to look behind a rock to see if there's anything behind it, or turn one over. Um, so that's what I really love about this game. There's a lot more to love about it, but that's what stuck with me.
I feel like rocks and AAA games in like the last, I don't know, 5 to 10 years have just become magnificent. Like it's, I hate to say it's made me appreciate rocks more in real life too, but it kind of has. Like, and that's coming from I climb as well. Like
Yeah.
I enjoy looking at rocks for that reason, but like also just you'll be out and about, I'll be like, wow, it's beautiful here. Really looks like Final Fantasy 15 or like something like that, where just how far environmental art has come, and so it's cool. Did they do like true like mapping with Iceland, like it was on location,
I,
or is
I
it?
I know they did a lot of time on location there. I don't know that any real place is a real place, but yeah, I'm sure they did kind of texture mapping and yeah.
Yeah. No, it looks great. I definitely love Ninja Theory from some of those games you mentioned before, Heavenly Sword, but also, of course, DMC, Devil May Cry Reboot,
Yeah, yeah,
which had, I think, great gameplay and
we love
was, the weird case of a game being debooted into
it.
Devil May
Yeah.
Cry 5. I guess that's
What
more of a
game?
conversation for another day, but yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm huge fan of Ninja Theory. Uh, but yeah, it sounds like the gameplay is not as bombastic as that in this game.
No, it's very simple. The combat almost reminds me of kind of like an Infinity Blade, like it's that level, a little bit more robust, and it makes you feel much more powerful than it is, much more complex and weighty than it is. Like I think I probably only died a handful of times, but every single combat encounter I got into felt meaningful, felt weighty, felt risky. And I think that's just an amazing thing. They pulled that off through the music, through I think especially the performances. But to be able to to make a combat experience where I'm actually able to suspend my disbelief and feel like this matters when I know it doesn't, I think is just really incredible, really impressive.
Nice. And also a bunch of spooky stuff is going on.
It's a pretty scary one, I think. I mentioned the descent, and I think it definitely I think they know that influence and they embrace it. There's a good amount of cave diving in this one, and there may or may not be things down there.
Does it get real claustrophobic?
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. I mean, I haven't even talked about it, but something that's the first Hellblade was really they have kind of this binaural. How do you say it, Nolan?
Binaural, I guess.
Binaural sound design that's really incredible. And they're kind of these voices that Senua hears. It's kind of ambiguous if it is something going on with the Norse kind of mythology and pagan mythology that they deal with, or if it's perhaps something to do with her mental health. I know they had a lot of consultants in kind of research related to that in the first one and in this one too, and take that very seriously. I think it's probably I don't think many games or movies, for that matter, handle this kind of conversation around mental illness in any kind of interesting or respectful way, and this one manages to do it. But just the sound around you, hearing a voice whisper just behind your ear, or um, maybe it's just the wind. It's really frightening. Just the sound design. This pushes that even further.
Amazing. All right, well, I can use that to segue into another unsettling game.
It's-
So my third game is a game by Shared Memory, uh, which is primarily Billy Basso. It is Animal Well, and this is the first game published by Big Mode, which is Video Game Donkey's new publishing studio, which I just think is an interesting, fact that YouTubers are now becoming publishers. And I think, I mean, what you want from a publisher is to get attention, and I think he can do that. So seems like a good publisher. But this game is great. It is a Metroidvania style game, right? So you're getting items and they unlock different ways to interact with the world. But it is a Metroidvania that really surprised me in a way that most don't. And so I think that, you know, I kept expecting to get a double jump, for example, in this game, or a dash or something, and you just don't. What you do get instead, as a little like rock, right? It's very like uh, the graphics in this game are both beautiful but like overly simple as well. It's a very interesting combination. But you're like this little rock, and you just find toys. You find a frisbee, and you find a yo-yo, and you're using those to interact with the world and traverse it and discover. And there's like situations where things attack you, but there's not really combat. So it's not a power fantasy. It's all about learning how you can use the things that you have, and allow it, allow you to get to places that you haven't been able to get before. So I really loved it. It's also a game that has a bunch of layers in it. So the like first layer, you're kind of like, oh, here's some mysteries, I'm kind of solving them, and then you realize that like there's a bunch more mysteries underneath the surface as you go along, and I just love that kind of thing. And I didn't even solve all of them. Some of them require, global collaboration from all players to figure them out. But I
Is it
definitely
like
got
a Fez level or the Witness or like what kind
it.
of?
I think Fez is a good
Okay,
analogy.
cool.
Um, but yeah, it was just like a fantastic game where there's something new around every corner. And it was another one where I had a notebook out and I was just like writing down like, okay, well there's something here. They also have a really good map system, which doesn't fill it, like specifically does not fill in sections where there's something more you can do. So it's not just like, oh, I've gotten into this area and explored it. But it allows you to like at a glance figure out, oh, there's more to do here that I don't even know what that means yet.
Right.
So it just was, there's a bunch of mysteries and I solved a lot of them, and there's some that I will never solve, and I'm happy with my time with it.
Great.
Awesome.
Neither of you played this, okay?
Nope.
I
No,
no
sorry.
no no. It is also very. It's probably second on my list after Lorelei. I really want to play it.
All right. Yeah, highly recommend it.
I love these spooky like ghost cats or whatever they are in the background.
They like, remind me
Mhm.
of like Hausu.
And this ostrich is like a nightmare.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're like those are the animals.
Okay, is this one scary?
It's not scary, but it is unsettling.
Okay.
Um, there's like a lot of weird. There's a lot of weirdness going on, and especially in the sound design is very ambient and spooky. Uh,
Mm.
so it like gets you in that sort of mood that something scary is gonna happen, but there's not like jump scares. There's not like
Mm.
really there's one sequence maybe where like there's things after you, but for the most part it's not spooky.
Well,
All right.
if we have nothing else to say and want to talk about another very unsettling game, we can do my last one, which is CLICKOLDING.
We've reached the spooky section of our stream.
We
I hope
saved the creepiest for last.
You're up.
Yeah, so CLICKOLDING is a game by Strange Scaffolds. It's certainly a small game. It's a game that both feels short and long for a variety of reasons. But basically, this is a game. I mean, there's this sort of like whole history of games as being like kind of like naughty. And there's plenty of games that I can think of over the years that I've played where like you don't want the wrong person to walk in the room at the wrong time. You know, it's sort of the classic like GTA loading screen or like strip club dots or like those sorts of things. I mean, obviously there's all sorts of other like silly, ridiculous games that sort of like fit in that space, like BMX XXX or Dead or Alive
Oh
Beach
man,
Volleyball or whatever.
BMX
I mean, Yeah, right. I saw that on a shelf recently, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's a game that exists." I mean, heck, I even one of my honorable mentions from this year. I played Stellar Blade this year, and there were times where I had to think if anyone was going to walk into the living room where I was playing and which outfit I should have Eve wearing, and just being like sort of sensible about that. But with click holding, the naughtiness I experienced wasn't like overt sexual imagery or anything like that, but it was rather the sort of like creepy setting and this action that the arbiter of the game has you perform. So basically, you're in a hotel room with this like masked guy sitting in the cuck chair, for lack of a better way of putting it, and he's like asking you to like click this device, and all you do is you click whatever mechanism it is. For me, it was the mouse click of my PC mouse. And he's just having you click and click and click, and you're just seeing this counter going up and up and up, and there are a bunch of different like story beats that happen as you click more and more. And why there was this sort of like naughtiness for me is like my mouse is like not quiet. So like I was like sitting in like the downstairs office in her house, like clicking for honestly like 45 minutes during this game. Just like repeatedly. And like it's pretty much the only thing you do other than sort of moving around this room. And there were like these moments where I was just like, does my wife wonder what's going on down here? Like should I close the door? Like it was a really like it made me feel very uneasy what I was doing because of the nature of the narrative, the nature of the sort of like performative action, and then just sort of the noise and like repetition of it. So yeah, it's like I said, it's not exactly a long game, but it feels long because of this sort of central mechanism. And it like as I was playing it, it made me wonder like how long does the creator of this easy experience like want me to like sit here and obey this request to continue clicking? Like as a game designer, I found myself wondering like how much content should a game of this scale have? Like how far is it going to go? How thoughtful was it, or at what point is it this sort of like commentary on the game designer as the person who tells you to do something and you as the player like obeys even if there's no reward. So it was this really cool just sort of vibe and interaction, like really nice short narrative game that had me feel in a whole bunch of different ways in terms of like how I am as a player and the context of where I was playing it and all those different sorts of things. So yeah, really really cool, unique, different experience. I've not played something like this before.
Yeah, it's almost like the dark side of the coin of the, like cookie clicker, where
Mm,
I
they
was gonna
both
ask,
kind of
is it a quicker game
yeah.
in any way?
it is kind of, I think so. They both, sort of remove the artifice of games just make you click things, right? Games are about clicking and the lights change. Um,
Right.
Mhm.
this one
Yeah.
sets it up more as uh something that you're doing for someone else, right? The designer
Mhm.
has set this up, um as opposed to sort of these like intrinsic rewards in a cookie clicker in a clicker game. um but I don't know, I you don't have to click too many times. I think it's only like 1,000 or 2,000 total in the game, but after you're done you can just keep clicking. And I did keep clicking a lot to see if anything would happen, like 100,000 times maybe, and something does not happen.
Yeah,
So
it's really fascinating for like a completionist to pick this up because there's a sort of logical get to this number and the game's over. And spoilers, the game doesn't end then, but like you can just keep going, and I think it becomes like an exercise in your patience and your desire to be a completionist and your desire to like obey and your desire to explore. And yeah, it's fascinating.
What do you know about the dev?
oh, they're great.
No,
They make all sorts of small, bite-sized, interesting games. Um,
Yeah.
I think Xavier Nelson or something like that is the.
Oh, this is the studio that made El Paso to Elsewhere.
Yes.
I
So
love that
they're
game.
yeah.
Yeah,
So they make a
they're
bunch
all,
of weird games.
I'm Your Beast too. Cool.
So looks like you got another one to play after this, Nathan.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah,
Cool.
it's nice that it's like half an hour to an hour,
Love
and
that.
kind of
Yeah.
it goes through sort of everything you can do with clicking or not clicking, and then it's over.
Mhm.
And I love a game that doesn't outstay its welcome.
Yeah.
Excellent. And you're you got obviously something out of like the 30-45 minutes, and we're sitting here talking about it. So
Yeah. It's stuck. It definitely sticks with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Chris, your first two games were both like whatever, 100 hours and then like infinite, and now this is like in an hour.
Yeah. 45 minutes, I think, is how long
Yeah.
I played it. Something like that.
This is such like a real return to you. It feels like you've been you obviously love mechanical games. I'm happy to see you like playing little narrative games like this and like
Yeah. I mean, the reality of the situation is I don't play competitive games as much as I used to because
yeah.
competitive games actually take more time than narrative games.
Right.
Because if you want to be good, you have to play a lot.
Right, yeah.
So
I just remember what like when we met, we were all talking about like Limbo and Braid, right?
oh yeah.
And yeah, that's fun to see.
Heavy rain, flower.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You want to
All
bring us
right.
home, Nathan?
My last, yeah.
How about another
The last,
spooky game?
yeah, I'm a spooky boy. I'm 100% through and through. Yeah, this game's called Withering Rooms. I think it's flown a little bit under the radar, but I have to believe it's going to be kind of a sleeper hit. It is really special. It is my favorite game of the year. It mashes up a lot of really familiar things in a way that just felt so unique and fun to me. It felt like I was actually discovering things, and that I was kind of being rewarded in a very organic way for just living in and exploring this world and being curious, right? Like you see these eyes in the beginning of the game look through a crack, and you're like, oh, that's kind of a fun spooky thing they did there. And then 20 hours later you figure out that, oh, that actually like is a thread that you can pull on that is going to open up the world to be something so much bigger and more interesting than you thought. um yeah, yeah, it takes a lot. I think aesthetically from kind of the Souls games, despite being kind of 2D, some really nice kind of spooky creatures design, a little bit of Lovecrafty and stuff in there. The costumes, every game should have costumes, but I mean this one has great ones. You can run around in your little nightgown like you see, and you can get a rainbow costume, or you can get your ruby red Scarlet Witch costume that lets you kind of play a vampire build and earn health back as you're doing damage, and it's really fun. It does have that kind of one more run mechanic. It is lightly it's like you're in a shared dream house. This is what you learn at the very beginning of the game. You're in a kind of recurring shared nightmare. And there is a little bit of procedural generation, or at least randomization. So every time you die, you're starting back in the house, and the rooms have moved around, and the monsters have moved around. And you're just learning a little bit more every time in a way that really does feel like Dark Souls. I'm not someone who loves the boss fight so much in Dark Souls, but what I really love is just poking around in the world just until you find that one more thing, that one more path, that one more door that leads to something new. And that's all. Each run in Dark Souls for me, it's a success if I find one more little thing, and this kind of check that box perfectly.
Yeah, I played this just a tiny bit at your place, Nathan. And I think what struck me was sort of how far it's willing to go into the weirdness. You're trying to
Yes.
explain to me some of the systems, and you're like, oh, well, it started as this, and then it became that, and then now I'm looking at this, and like, it really goes off the rails, I think, in a pleasing way.
Yeah, there's some fun test your luck kind of mechanics where they introduce something and it's a bad thing, a condition that's going to hurt you over time. But then maybe it turns out that you can only do certain things when you have that condition applied to you, including maybe like unlocking story related things. So that's just one kind of example of exactly how it does that. Yeah.
What's the sort of like mechanical or I guess, I don't know, logical mechanism for like so you die and then you're reset as your character is a dream and then sort of like re-entering the dream? I mean
You're
without spoiling
re-entering.
too much.
Yeah, no. You're re-entering the dream. You're waking up back where you started, but kind of with your you remember everything. Everyone
Mm.
remembers everything. Most of the characters, if they die, they're coming back to life too. Uh, and then mechanically, yeah, you lose most of your stuff if you die, but over time you can make certain trade-offs to kind of soulbind your favorite things so
Mm.
that you keep them with you, right? So there is that little bit of a roguelike element. You're picking up different things on each run. You're learning different little pieces of the story, but then you can, like the best of those games do, you can build up kind of more powerful permanent machine as you keep playing.
Is it beatable or
Yes. It is a very story heavy game.
mm.
Very story heavy game. Very your character not character driven so much, but um story heavy in the way that I would compare it to kind of like a Resident Evil style story. You're learning a lot about the characters and kind of what's happened, how they've gotten to kind of this messed up nightmare that everybody's stuck in together. Um, and I mean that in a great way. The stories of Resident Evil can be cheesy, and this one is kind of fantasy off the walls too. But it also is something that I kind of took serious and actually cared about. So yeah, I love this game. Love this game. Moonless Formless. It is this studio's first game. I have tried. I cannot learn. I can't find very much about this studio and kind of their background. But I'm, really excited that this like checked every box for me, and it feels like it's a game that's made just for me. And I'm so excited to see what they do next.
Awesome. All right, how are you doing on time, Chris and Nathan? Can you hang out
uh
for?
yeah, we can hang out for a sec. Doing a rapid fire our honorable mentions.
Let's do a rapid
Yeah,
fire. All right,
yeah,
so we've got some bonus games that we played this last year, but were not made this last year, or released, that is. So mine, another spooky game. I guess that's our up at night taste, right? Is Dredge. So I played this on my
yeah.
streams for sort of I finished one of my Halloween games early, and so I needed another one. And I know Nathan, you had played this in 2023 when it came out and really loved it, so I picked it up. And it's great. It's a kind of Lovecraftian eldritch horror fishing game, and you go around this kind of cursed world where there's you're pulling up fish and some of them don't come out quite right, and then you start to notice that there's things beneath the surface that are coming for you, but they may or may not be real, and so you're going around trying to find some cursed artifacts and trying to keep your your boat together by fishing and selling the fish and upgrading. It's pretty simple, looks great, uh, and it's got a lot of depth to it, both in the ocean and mechanically. And then they also came out with DLC this year. So there were two DLCs. I also played those. And they're interesting because they're integrated into just the game itself. They're not afterwards or separate. So they just like make the game bigger. And they add some more interesting mechanics there. Oops, we're not looping. All right, we're back. Nobody worried. We're back to Dredge. But yeah, it's I would say definitely check out the base game at least. It was a great time.
So many
This
fun
looks
little
cool.
monster variations to find. It like kind of scratched a little bit of the Pokemon itch for me without being quite so big or expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I love fishing mini games and games. And always like kind of like a sort of like mythology of like trying to complete, again, not a Pokedex, but like going through and finding the like different weirdness in the world. Like I always love when fishing games seem like pretty chill at face value, and then you have like the really weird, hard, complicated fish to catch and like that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe this would scratch that itch for me.
This game also has the kind of sanity meter that Eternal Darkness kind of famously used, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, and nobody's really done so much with since then. These kind of effects that happen as you stay out later to catch more fish, you start
Mm,
experiencing more spooky things, and it's really, it's really fun. There's a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
push your luck there.
cool.
Yeah, especially because you're like, oh, that's not real, and they're like, oh, that was real.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
that one was not just a
that
hallucination. That one's
that one was real. All right, Chris, your bonus
Cool. So
game.
I misunderstood the assignment. I picked another game from this year,
fine.
which I could have picked something like when I've unearthed my PS Vita recently, and I've like playing stuff on that. Like I'm playing Persona 4 Golden and like other stuff there. But no, the one I did pick for that because I misunderstood the assignment that we have a trailer for is Spectre Divide. Um, so this is a game made by Mountaintop Studios. Kind of notably a game that was backed by Shroud, the popular FPS pro and now streamer. The sort of like interesting thing I have to say about this game, it's not a very good game. There's a lot of problems with it. The netcode's not amazing. There's a really big cheating problem. The user base completely dropped off. I think that the graphics are okay, but are a little bit like there's not a lot of like variation in value. So you're wondering, why do I think this is a good game? There's a pretty cool central mechanic in it. So the whole concept is you are two characters within a 3v3 FPS. So there's like effectively six bodies in a round, and you throw like a hockey puck that sets up your other character, and you can switch between them. So this allows you a couple of different like opportunities to A, like have a second life if your first person dies, B, be on two different sides of the map defending two different spaces, C, like put yourself in a position to like have a crossfire with yourself,
Mm.
which creates like a really cool high skill level sort of mechanism with it. The reason why I think that this is really cool, and I don't even know that it was like done perfectly or anything like that, but the reason why I think it's really cool is the first couple of games, and even still, I played maybe 10 hours of this game. And even still, when I play it, I get a really similar sensation utilizing this mechanic that I get to when I first played Portal. Um, where like you're kind of going through and all of a sudden you see the portal for the first time and then you're like, wait, is that me? And like your brain kind of like doesn't understand it. And I don't feel like I have that feeling in games a lot. Maybe it's because I play a lot of them, but maybe because most of the disorienting like 3D or 2D spatial things have been done at some capacity by now.
Little
But
digital.
yeah, but for whatever reason, this one did kind of tickle that itch where I was just like, oh, like that's how that works, or oh, now I'm shifting between and I'm in this position and my space has changed, and then sort of applying that to a competitive multiplayer setting. I think I think they're as a company they're not doing super well, and like I said, the player base is super down, and this was actually a huge year for competitive FPSs. Like there's just, or not even just FPSs, but also like third person shooters. If you think about like Marvel Rivals or Deadlock or a number of the other games that were released there
On
this year
board.
that are kind of that are competing for the same user base. So it wasn't exactly the best year to release it, but like I said, I think that mechanic was interesting enough for me to be like, want to talk about and want to, wish that I could see what people do with it, and hopefully the game gets some more life, gets some more development love.
Yeah, and you're a Counter-Strike boy, so did
Mhm.
this scratch that itch at all, or?
It is Counter-Strike. The difference mechanically is Counter-Strike is very much a like it's not a spray and pray type game. It's a you need to be really intentional with your shots. If you're moving and shooting, you'll be completely inaccurate. This is more of like a COD or Apex, like downline sights moving and shooting type game. But the sort of like mechanism of play is it's still like a bomb defusal scenario, which is Counter Strike. I mean, the thing that I love about Counter Strike in general is that I play it with friends, especially at this part of my life. And I didn't have any friends who really wanted to try this with me, so in that sense, it didn't scratch that itch. But in the sense that it's the same game as Counter Strike, and even Fortnite released Ballistic Mode this year, which is also Counter Strike. It's just Counter Strike with Fortnite controls and characters and skins and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, a lot of games definitely do this. I'm Valorant as well is Counter Strike just with abilities. So yeah, if people played it with me, it probably would have scratched that itch, but it didn't catch on.
Every game is either Counter-Strike or Pokemon.
Or tag.
Great.
Well, Counter Strike is tag actually, but
okay. All right, Nathan, do you want to give us your final bonus game?
I'll look through my notes on this one. Squad 51 versus the Flying Saucers, which is a very fun little delightful game. It is a shmup. Not the most kind of punishing or like Twitch based shmup. It's pretty loose and fun. Nolan, you and I played it together on a couch in one sitting, which is amazing. It felt like
co-op gameplay
again. Yeah, just the perfect amount. It did not stay its welcome. You know, it's like I said, not the most Twitch skill kind of shmup. So having 20 hours of this game, I don't know if I need it, but it was exactly what it needed to be with like 5 or 6 hours. It's a collaboration. So it's a game from developer in Brazil, LumiArts, in collaboration with a film studio, also in Brazil, Fedorama Games. And it was, I mean, one, I don't know if I've ever played a game from developers in Brazil, so that's really cool just to play more games from different place. It is fully, voice acted in this live action cutscenes. It's in Portuguese. It feels like a creation of developers in Brazil, and it feels really special. It really embraces this kind of B movie camp aesthetic, like early 30s horror movies. It's really fun. We were laughing. These alien costumes are hilarious. There's some really good kind of knowing moments where they really lean into how ridiculous it is, and it's quite funny. So yeah, we love this game. It was really fun.
This looks amazing. This is like the exact combination of aesthetics that I would want to see, and again, like a game that I would like pitch to you guys. I feel like this is hilarious.
Yeah, it's the aesthetic is really good, and they nailed this combination of these videos, right? Full motion video, and then also there's like practical backgrounds sometimes, right? They'll like have the toys and stuff that like are that they filmed and put into the game, and then also they have some 3D models for things as well, and kind of seamlessly blend between them. It looks really great. And there's like just enough of a mechanic that it makes it interesting, right? Where you are, it's a shmup where you are turning a little bit when you move up or down to like shoot forward. So again, it's not too hard, but there's like something there to keep you going that they use in some interesting ways. But yeah, I would say, Nathan, you definitely didn't have to work that hard because I was carrying you the entire time.
That's always true with these types of games. It wasn't Cuphead all over again. It did not take us 3 years to beat. We did it one night, but I think there's some truth to that. Sure.
Yeah. No, it's great. Absolutely loved it.
It's always amazing. I feel like today with the way we live online, it's always so nice to have something that's truly a surprise. You're like, I never heard of this game. I have no clue what it is, and it's just a delight. Like that so rarely happens today that I just value that so much.
All right. So that is all of our games. So thank you, people who are watching. Thank you, people who are watching later. We are up at night. We're making more games coming out this year. If you want to find out about them, you can go to patreon.com/upatnightgames, follow for free, and we will let you know when our new games are coming out. But that's it for us. So, anything else anyone wants to say?
Appreciate y'all. Just want to double down on 2025 as the year of no side questing. Yeah, mainline only, minimal runs. I actually have to replay Stellar Blade because I didn't finish it before returning your PS5.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna mainline it. But yeah, no more side quests.
All right,
I think
yeah.
this was my first ever, so I'll just throw that out there now. Thanks for bearing with me.
Oh,
you're great.
I know. I don't know how it's 2025 and I've never done a stream, but
I know. I have notes. We can talk later. No, no, this is great. This is very fun. Yeah, hopefully we can do a lot more of this coming up.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to talk about some games that a lot of our games I think were not necessarily in the conversation for the games of year 2024. So it's nice to be able to talk about things that are not just on media websites. So
Yeah.
that's it. All right. Thanks everybody.
See ya.
So,
Bye.
bye.